Hello and welcome to the 404 Media Podcast. I am Jason Kebler and I'm filling in for Joseph Cox this week. I have, as usual, Emmanuel, what's up?
Hey.
And Sam Cole.
Hello.
This week we are going to be talking about our continued descent into an AI hellscape and how AI content is taking over all of our platforms. Let's start out with this story by Emmanuel called AI Images in Google Search Results Have Opened a Portal to Hell. Google image search results are turning up AI-generated images of celebrities and leading users to sites that host AI-generated nudes and nudes of celebrities made to look like children. So, bleak stuff. Emmanuel, how did you originally find this story?
So I found this completely by accident while we were editing one of your stories. So Jason was writing one of many stories about AI generated content on Facebook. In this case, some pretty explicit and straight up pornographic content on fan pages for some celebrities like Taylor Swift. And most of the images we saw there were either taken from porn videos or were very clearly AI generated. But there was one image that we were not sure of, and we were trying to figure out: is this AI? Has this been edited? Is this a real photo of Taylor Swift? We just wanted to make sure. So in the image, it's like Taylor Swift. It seems like she's on a beach. She has sunglasses on. And she's I think she's throwing up the peace sign and sticking her tongue out, like very Instagram photo. So I typed in, I'm trying to find the exact search term. It is Taylor Swift beach sunglasses tongue out, which is a peek behind the curtain of how we do some research. And I typed that into Google image search, and very quickly, Google still, despite everything, a useful product. We found out that the image came from her Instagram, which was blogged by the Daily Mail. That's where Google was pulling the image from. But like the third result was an image that I have in the story of Taylor Swift behind the wheel of a car, and it looks pretty convincing. But there's like some amorphous blobs in the background, and then kind of you look more closely at the image and you're like, how does the car relate to the beach in this context, and why is Taylor Swift screaming? I don't know, it doesn't seem quite real. But like if you're just glancing through a bunch of photos, you might not notice that it's AI.
I think it's like one of those images where if you blow it up, it's like, okay, this is clearly AI. But if you see it in a window of 20 other photos, you might not click through. Because like her hair is very whack. I've never seen her hair look like this.
It looks stylish to me. But if you imagine like the results for a Google image search, it's a grid of images. You might fit like, I don't know, 20 images on a page. And it was just one of them. And I was like, oh, that's strange. That's AI. And then I scrolled down and there was like another very clearly AI generated image of Taylor Swift that's kind of horrific. It looks like she has two tongues and she kind of looks like a cartoon. But that's besides the point. What I was wondering is like, there was nothing in the search term that indicated that I was looking for an AI generated image. So I was like, I wonder if there's a way to reliably surface AI generated images of celebrities without asking for it explicitly. And, we've written a lot about non-consensual AI generated pornography and nude images, but you might get some of that if you ask Google for it, but it tries to filter that stuff out because it's explicit and also abhorrent in many cases. But if you type in the name of a celebrity plus swimsuit or bikini, it will 100% of the time pull up an AI generated image of a celebrity in the first page of results. If not like the first 5 results, then definitely like in the first screen of images, you'll see there'll be AI generated images and they won't be flagged as such. So if you're just like perusing the grid It's like real image, real image, AI image. I tried to kind of like illustrate that in like the top image of the story, showing how common this is.
Yeah, so we can talk a little bit about like what you found when you started clicking through these images, but I think that the reason I find this story to be interesting and like notable, um like I don't know, I'm not searching for bikini images of celebrities very often, um unless we're doing journalism, but it's like you publish this and then immediately someone responded to you and said they were searching for Garay Point Beach, which is a beach in Big Sur, California, and the top image search is like the top image is AI generated. And soon after we launched 404 Media, the first result for Tank Man, which is this really famous Tiananmen Square image that's notoriously been censored by the Chinese government. It's kind of like an interesting test across different tech platforms to see like how different tech platforms handle this image. Um, for a period in September, if you search for Tank Man on Google, the first image was an AI generated selfie that was like obviously not real. Um, and so, what this sort of like says to me is that all these months later, Google is still indexing AI generated content and is serving it alongside real content, and it's like not able to decipher what is real and what is not. And it's I don't know, it's like if you were to go and search for AI generated image Taylor Swift and pulled up like Google Images, like maybe you would expect that to come up in the first section of search results. But if you're just searching for Taylor Swift or like anything, if you're just searching for anything, you'd hope that you would find photographs, real photographs, and like human made art, and that's kind of no longer the case.
Or you would hope that if it does turn up AI images, it would flag them as such, which Google is not doing either. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty interesting. We don't know exactly why this happens because we don't know exactly how uh, Google is ranking pages and deciding what to surface. But in the Tankman example, that was also pulled from Reddit. We've recently wrote a lot about how Google's AI overview feature was feeding people dangerous information that was pulling from Reddit. And that's where the Tank Man image came from also. And I think in that instance, to, you know, give Google some credit, um, there's a lot of useful information on Reddit. And the reason, I mean, I'm speculating, but maybe the reason that Tankman, the AI generated image of Tankman showed up there is because it was somewhat viral on Reddit, so Google thought people agreed that it was useful and it brought it to the top. With these images, I think there's actually a pretty easy fix, and that is because all the AI generated images are coming from a fairly limited list of websites where people generate AI images. So Civitai, for example, is a website that I've covered a lot where you could go type a prompt and generate an image. And this Taylor Swift image and all these other images come from websites where that is exclusively what the website does and is about. So if I was Google and I was trying to not have this happen, which, by the way, I have a comment from them in the story. I talked to them. I haven't seen any changes made to the results yet, but it's like you can either filter out these websites. They're not, I mean, there's many of them if you think about the fact that 2 years ago, none of them existed, right? But it's like I tested this and I found 11 different image generation websites that feed these results to Google. So either filter them out or offer a toggle to users to like not show results from these websites. Seems like a pretty easy fix. The bigger issue is that if you click on one of those images, you are very quickly falling down the rabbit hole of these image generation sites that contain a lot of really bad content.
Yeah. I do want to talk about that in a second, but I also want to talk a little bit about why Google is probably grabbing these. I think that it's like the images are the images contain text and tagging and prompt data that aligns very closely with the search. So it's like if you are trying to generate an image of Taylor Swift in a bikini, like that is probably what the text prompt is going to look like to generate that image, and that data is being fed to Google or is contained on these websites, from what I could tell. Um, so therefore, it's like it's very neatly organized in a way that would make it easy for Google to grab. Whereas some of these, like there might not be that many real photos of the thing that you're looking for.
Or the
Um,
photo might not be annotated. Like again, the example, like the first image I stumbled upon of Taylor Swift in the car screaming with the sunglasses on. If that was a real photo, like the one that the Daily Mail posted on its website, the Daily Mail doesn't annotate the photo like that with all the detail about like what's in the image. But by definition, when you're generating an image, you have to describe it in detail. And if the prompt is included, then Google basically has like this cache of annotated images. So my search term correlated very neatly with an existing image and a prompt.
Right. So there's that. And then there's the fact that, as we talked about before, it's like anything that you're generating with AI, you can generate thousands of variations of that. And so, um, we don't know exactly how the Google search algorithm works, but we know that one of the signals is like if you're taking more shots, you have probably like more chances of showing up high. And so this is why I think it applies to the broader internet and to sort of all platforms. And we've been talking about this forever, but I think that the internet really is going to be taken over by AI generated slop because there they're like real human photography and real human articles and real human art are competing. Like a human output is competing with a mechanical automated output where there is like one image taken by a human being against thousands of images that are generated by AI that are being posted to these sites constantly, so they're being updated often, so Google is indexing them for newness and things like that, and then maybe people are clicking on them and it's getting boosted that way. And so it's like the algorithms that we're using to surface this content are out of whack to the point where it's not just that human generated images and articles are competing with AI content. It's that these algorithms are favoring the AI content because the way that AI generated images are produced and tagged is superior to the way that human generated art is usually tagged, and the output is such that there's more, so there's like more chances of it getting um surfaced. And then we do know that newness and consistency is one of the things that Google has always thought about in its search algorithm. So if you're posting every 5 minutes or every hour, that is going to often surface higher than someone who is posting one piece of art a week or something like that. um Do you want to talk about the other stuff that was on these? Like you click through a celebrity's AI generated image, and then on these websites there was much worse stuff.
So initially, when we were editing your article, I found this AI generated image of Taylor Swift, and I think we immediately decided that we should cover it. But at that point, I think the story was another example of this Tankman situation that you mentioned, and the story's about Google surfacing AI content without letting users know, and kind of creating this fog of like what is real and what is AI, which is a problem. But I think when I started writing the story, and I was like, okay, what are these websites, and what am I finding as a user if I'm clicking through to see like, oh, what is this image of Taylor Swift in a bikini actually? Like, where is it from? Um, the the click flow, if you will, like the user experience is you click on the image, that takes you to the image generation website. The image is at the top of the page, and then most of these websites have a recommendation algorithm that's not that different than Instagram or YouTube or um, any number of websites. It's like there's the thing that you were looking for, and then via the tags on the image and other images that the same user has created, that kind of populates a grid of images below. So if you scroll down, there's other images of Taylor Swift. There's other images of Taylor Swift in a bikini. There's other images of other celebrities in a bikini. But then it also transforms into something uglier where it's like, oh, it's a celebrity in a bikini, but the celebrity has been made to look like a child. And if you click on that, you get more of that. But then, at some point, it also turned into um, image AI generated images of celebrities made to look like children but nude. And this was a fairly common thing that I saw on these websites.
Yeah, and I think that this just demonstrates that these websites are not doing a very good job of catching CSAM and people who are trying to generate child sexual abuse material on their websites. And then these websites are being indexed by Google and served up very high in the results. So it's a pretty it's a pretty gnarly situation. Um, Sam has done a lot of reporting about uh, Leon 5B, the gigantic open source data set that had a lot of child sexual abuse material in it, as well as just children in general. Um, and we're seeing that like efforts to clean these data sets up are not working. Um,
I
Sam, Leon 5B is still offline, is it not?
Yeah, as far as I know. Um, yeah, all of this reminds me of, you guys need to help me remember what outlet this was. I was trying to find it. The story that came out recently that was like AI generated images of kids are like attracting pedophiles on Facebook to like, you know, continue being pedophiles basically through like commenting and being like, oh, I want to see her, and they're all AI generated. Someone did a really big piece about this recently. Maybe we can like put it in the show notes or something if I find it after. But it's like the problem here wasn't really celebrities in bikinis. Like I could really give, you know, less of a fuck about seeing AI Taylor Swift in a bikini, but it's that it's leading down this path of like, this is where it's coming from. This is where it's being trained on, is these images of kids, real children. And we read about that recently, about how this isn't like a victimless crime by any means. Um, it's, it's something that real people are affected by. Yeah, I kind of, this is kind of going back to something Emmanuel said about the toggling. Um, I do wonder, like Google knows that people actually click on this stuff and people want to see it. That's why it's still up. That's why it's still something that like you can search Google and immediately see a bunch of AI garbage, is because people actually click it and kind of like it. I think I kind of wonder, and I'd like to hear your thoughts about this, if we are in a bubble where we're very much in communities where people are like realizing the harms of AI generated garbage taking over the internet. But I also have friends who are very offline who send me like, look what I made. Isn't this cool? And it's like an AI generated thing that they made with like a prompt. Or like, people on Facebook, we've talked a lot about like people just making trash there to share to get engagement. I don't know. It's like, does Google know that there is a subset of people who hate this shit? And how would they know it if they don't do some kind of like toggle or A/B testing or like something where, I don't know, they would gather that kind of data? But
I mean, I think that there's a backlash to AI generated content and AI generated images among journalists and artists that has extended to the broader public. And, we've been writing a lot about it, but so have many other outlets. And we've seen the rise of some social media companies and just companies in general that have like promised not to use AI. And I think that that's a way that they have been able to differentiate themselves in this increasingly crowded market where like literally every tech platform is adding some sort of AI image generation service to it. It's like, Sam, earlier today you pointed out that DeviantArt now has its own AI image generator on it, which is wild because it's a platform for artists that, has where the community has really resisted AI art. Um,
They like brought up they like someone on DeviantArt, I think it started there, where they created like the AI, like the no AI
the
like little
pledge.
the slash through it. Yeah, which it's like, and this was actually Emmanuel brought up the image generator thing on DeviantArt, and I had to Google it because I was like, I feel like they took a stance against AI, but it was just the users who were like, no, fuck this. And then DeviantArt did it anyway. But yeah, you're right. It's like it's journalists and artists, and it's kind of bleeding out slowly. I think people are kind of catching on. But I do wonder how many people are just oblivious to this being a problem, or that they don't care maybe that it is a problem, and they should.
Right. I think that
Yeah.
I think it's like a question of how much people like actually care. It's probably one of literacy, and then it's also, I would think it's one of like, what are you using the AI for? And it's like, I was at a bachelor party a few months ago, and I was in a big group chat, like a group text for that bachelor party, and people were like using Dolly in that group chat to like talk shit about the other people in the group chat. So it was just like, you know, generate an image of me owning Christian at beer pong, sad Christian, Christian, like this person's name, not the religion, like rain, like snowing on his head, lightning everywhere, blah, blah, blah. And then it generates something super shitty, but funny. And you
No.
send it in the group chat. And like, that is, that's the extent of the use of Dolly or Mid Journey in this instance. And it's like, you know, taking off my little purity hat here, I was like, oh, that's funny. Like, good job. Very funny. And it's like, to me, we're not hiring in this group chat. We're not going to hire an artist to talk shit about Christian in the group chat. You know what I'm saying? Like, the use of that AI is like not bad. But then you talk about like, well,
Mhm.
what about all the art that it was trained on? What about, all of the computing power, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you can then start to think, well, it's unethical to dunk on Christian in the group chat using Dolly or whatever. And so I think that everyone is going to have like a different level of what they are comfortable using AI for. And I think that as it begins to just like be injected into everything, those lines are going to get blurry. And it's like, I don't know, when people talk about like no ethical consumption under capitalism or whatever, it's like, no ethical AI art generation regardless of anything. And it's like, I don't know, I don't personally know how I feel about it, because it's like, the group chat art generation is not, I'm not stealing someone's job there. At the same time, it is taking someone's work, it's remixing it automatically. It's, I don't know. What do you
Yeah.
think?
I
It's
don't
like
know.
propping up it's like someone is paying for those, giving money to OpenAI to generate those tokens, to generate the image, like blah blah blah.
You're displacing the caricature artist on the boardwalk that will draw like an embarrassing drawing of you and your friends for like 20
Yeah, but
bucks or
like you
something.
can't like then I think the difference is like you can't then like go to the caricature artist's Instagram and be like, here's how to generate nude children. I think that's why like Emmanuel's reporting on this is always really prescient and good, is like it follows the path that leads you toward like, okay, this is where like at the root of this, something really nefarious is happening. It's not just Taylor Swift in a car. It's, there's something like deeply fucked up going on far below the
Uh,
surface here. Or not even that far, just a little bit below the surface.
so last point about this, and then I think we can move on to a different story. But I spent, I feel like, so much time this past year reporting on Civitai, which is just one of these image generation platforms, and I definitely stand by that and all that reporting. And I think it's a uniquely important site because it doesn't just generate images; it is also a place where people share the models that make those images possible. But even though I'm familiar with this space, I wasn't familiar with some of these websites, these image generation websites, and I, for this story, found 11 of them, and I guarantee that you haven't heard of any of them and that our listeners don't know them. But behind each one of them are probably millions and millions of images, and I think that Civitai is constantly improving and getting better about moderation because of our reporting. But I haven't done any reporting on any of these other websites, and they appear to be very bad. And some of them have content policies, and some of them don't, and some of them have contact information, and some of them don't. I definitely didn't find any content removal forms on any of them that I've looked at. So there is just like this issue of scale, like Jason mentioned. It's like part of the reason that they're showing up in search results is that there's just so much there. There's so many images to scrape. And because there's so much to dig through and it's not properly moderated, you barely have to scratch the surface to find something really horrible. And that is kind of like the underlying problem.
Yeah, I have one more thing to say, which is I socialed the story and some dipshit responded to me and said, fact check, I went to Google and image searched two female celebrities, Mia Goth and Scarlett Johansson, who have major thirst communities. I saw no non-consensual porn. I added, quote, swimsuit to each query and got numerous AI results, but still no porn. Um, and then they sort of followed up and said, well, why didn't you call the article like Google closes portal to hell? Like Google fixes everything. Um, and this is like a type of response that we get very often when we write about horrifying shit on the internet, which I think that we don't have that much time to get into it. And I think we'll explore this more later. But it's like when we do stories like this, we ask for comment. And that's the responsible thing to do, is to talk to the tech companies like, hey, did you know this like crazy shit is happening on your platform? And very often they say no. And the first thing they say is send us links, because no one who's ever worked at any of these companies is capable of finding anything on their own, seemingly. And then sometimes we send it to them, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we describe how to find it. Sometimes the story is the fact that they can't find it. And then they go and they delete it immediately and they give us like a hand wavy statement that is like, this is not allowed, like something like this. In this case, Google didn't even do this. Like they didn't remove this stuff for the most part. But I want to be clear and like stress that like putting a band-aid on the 4 links that 404 Media has sent you in a PR email is not like solving the problem. It's like this is a symptom of a way, way, way bigger problem that we are finding without even trying, where Google is just putting AI images in its at the top of its image search, and it doesn't know how or why. It's not tagging them. If you click to the site, it's like Lord knows what the site is, who runs it, where it comes from, what else is on that website. And it's just like this is not a good or responsible way to like build your tech product. Um and yeah, we'll talk about it like more on another episode because we're doing some more reporting about this concept. But it's like, problem is not solved because they did the absolute bare minimum and slapped a band-aid on like a tiny corner of the problem. Okay. With that, we are going to take a break. And when we get back, we're going to talk about finance. Very exciting stuff. Okay, we are back and we're going to talk about investing, finance, money, stocks, things of this nature.
This is not financial advice to follow.
It's
No
not
part of this.
it's not financial advice, no. The story is you probably unwittingly voted to give Elon Musk a huge raise, and we will explain this in a moment. But I guess the background here is uh, I was in like a ton of debt several years ago and didn't know anything about anything at all. And so I started listening to every personal finance podcast that I could find so that I could learn how to get out of debt. Like I was making more money at Motherboard. I was able to start like paying it down. And then I was like, cool, I'm like 30 years old and don't have any retirement savings. Like, what should I do? And the general like advice, like this, the standard advice is invest in index funds in your 401k. And for if you're not in the US or you don't know what I'm talking about, 401k is a retirement investment vehicle where money is taken out of your paycheck pre-tax. So you don't have to pay taxes on that money when you put it away, but you can't touch that money until you're like 59 and a half, I believe it is. So basically like we've replaced pensions and, companies paying for retirement with save your own money for retirement, but it will not make you pay taxes on it until you take it out. And there's like various other, investment mechanisms. But there has been this move, like when you invest in a 401k, you have to decide what to invest in. And many companies don't allow you to pick an individual stock. So you can't say like, I'm going to put all my retirement money into Tesla stock. Very often you have to buy an index fund or a target date fund or some sort of like uh, mix of stocks, like a mutual fund, which means that instead of buying Tesla stock, you are maybe investing in the entire stock market or just the S&P 500, which is the 500 largest companies. You can often invest in like just green energy companies, things like this. Like there's zillions of different funds. And so this has become like an incredibly popular way of investing, not just in 401ks and IRAs and other like retirement accounts, but also in just like regular taxable investing as well. Unless you're buying like a shitload of GameStop stock, which we didn't talk about, and I guess we won't talk about. You can like buy like VTI, which is the entire stock market. And so if you give this company Vanguard $100, like you are buying a tiny, tiny, tiny portion of every stock that's listed on, I guess, the US stock market. And like every financial advice podcast over the last decade has been like, this is a better way to invest than picking individual winners and losers, because usually over time, the US economy grows. And if the stock market grows, like you are going to be in good shape. And so there's been this move to go from what's known as active investing, where you're picking individual stocks, to passive investing, where you're buying these big mutual funds or exchange traded funds that have like all of these little pieces of different companies. Huge preface. What this means is that like many people own Tesla stock, and they might not know that they own Tesla stock because they are giving their money to like Vanguard or to BlackRock or to State Street or Fidelity or like one of these massive investment companies that has these index funds that have holdings in Tesla or Exxon or Microsoft or Nvidia, all of these companies. And what has happened over the last decade is that so many people have done this that these giant financial institutions now own huge portions of these companies. Like Vanguard owns, I believe, 7% of Tesla. It is the single largest shareholder after Elon Musk. But if you think about it, it's like Vanguard doesn't actually own that. It's like all of its customers are giving Vanguard money, and then Vanguard is buying the Tesla stock, and then Vanguard has these funds, and it's like it's its investors' money. But when it comes to the operation of companies, like Vanguard is acting on their behalf. And that means that Vanguard or Fidelity or Charles Schwab or like any of these big investment firms actually have like a huge, like they are able to direct how these companies function. Are we following thus far? Yes, I'm seeing nods.
Yes.
I'm seeing nods on on my how to invest monologue. So, anyways, Tesla just had this like massive shareholder vote where shareholders had to vote whether to give Elon Musk either a $45 billion or $56 billion pay package. That I don't know the exact answer because of the numbers fluctuate because it's like stock based. But basically, like Delaware, the state of Delaware said that Tesla could not give Elon Musk this money because shareholders weren't properly informed about this. Like Tesla's board tried to do this a few years ago. A court in Delaware where Tesla was incorporated, they're now trying to move where they're incorporated to Texas, said, hey, you can't do this because the shareholders are not informed. You have to go inform the shareholders and then take a vote on whether Elon Musk gets a big raise. And so they just did that vote. And Vanguard used to be a no vote. Like they were voting no last time this came up. And Vanguard changed its vote to yes. And Elon Musk like got his raise. And Vanguard did this vote like on behalf of its millions and millions of investors who are passively investing money with Vanguard. They might not even know that they own Tesla stock. And yet here you are sort of voting for Elon Musk to get a raise. I wrote this story because I think it's very interesting. Like, I just think it's interesting, this phenomenon and trend to do passive investing, which, like, disclosure is how I did my 401k advice. It's like how I have the small amount of money I have it in index funds, and it's like how most people have it in index funds. So it's like I own some amount of Tesla stock. I have no idea how much, because it's like with these larger funds, I could go probably calculate it out, because as part of their disclosures, they have to say, okay, like this fund is made up of 0.85% Tesla stock, 1.5% Microsoft stock, et cetera, et cetera. But it's like one of the ways where kind of just like everyone who participates in the system is part of it, but doesn't necessarily have a say.
Fuck.
Yeah, I don't know. Any comments on my lecture?
I don't know. It's bleak. I don't know. It's like what is there to be done about this?
It's one of those things where
Putting
it's
my
like,
money back under the mattress,
yeah, it's like, am I going to participate in society or am I not going to participate in
I
society
would
type
love to
things?
not, but yeah.
Because it's like every financial advice like that is given to anyone in the United States is like, invest in your 401k. If you don't, you're going to be fucked when you're 65. It's basically like one of the only ways to sort of ensure that you can not have to work when you're 75, 80, 85, etc., is to like invest any amount of money when you're younger and like let it grow in the market, and to do it in this passive way because it's the safest. It's like more or less the safest way to do it. It's like investing is not always safe, obviously, but it's like usually the stock market grows over time, blah, blah, blah. We're not going to do math on here about compound interest, but that's like why you're supposed to do it. And like, interestingly, State Street and BlackRock, are close friends at some of the most evil firms in the world, have started to give their investors like kind of some say over this. They've been doing like questionnaires recently about how do you want us to vote on your behalf when things like this come up. And they won't say like, hey, do you want to vote to give Elon Musk more money, they will say things like, do you want to like stop, like, is global warming important to you? Is climate change important to you? And like nominally, they will then put your money into companies that are more climate conscious and will vote against things that are bad for the environment. But one of the interesting parts of this is like some of the things that they're allowing are like, you can tell them that you're like of Christian faith, and therefore they will like vote against like abortion type things. Like it's sort of it's like proxy. It's like removed from the actual process. So you're not really voting on any individual thing. You're just telling these giant companies like more about yourself and your values, and giving them more information about yourself so that they can then like use that info and data about you to like do whatever. But yeah, I think that there's not like that much to say here. I just think that it's interesting, and I have like tried to write about investing and the stock market whenever I can, which is not that often because we're not like a finance or business website or podcast. But I do listen to these money podcasts because, again, I'm just trying to like learn about these things. And it's interesting because if you listen to these podcasts, these financial podcasts, they're like, do Vanguard, do like ETF, and they don't really talk about what that means and how it kind of like impacts corporate governance and blah blah blah. It's like one of the things that all of these podcasts talk about is putting money into a Roth IRA, which is where you are investing already taxed money into a retirement account that then grows tax free. So when you take the money out when you're 60, you don't have to pay taxes on that. And there is a $6,000 like limit per year of how much money you can put into that. Well, ProPublica did a few stories a couple years ago about how like Peter Thiel, it's designed for not low income people, but it's not designed for rich people, first of all. But like Peter Thiel and other like tech billionaires were using this to, they were setting up Roth IRAs, then they were putting like $6,000 worth of stock that was like worth fractions and fractions and fractions of a penny for companies that they were investing in. So they were like very early stage startups. And then these companies would grow because they were investing in them. So that stock that was worth like fractions or fractions of a penny grew to be worth like billions of dollars. And all of that money was tax free because the initial $6,000 that they put in was already taxed. And it's just like, that is not discussed on any of these personal finance podcasts.
It
Like
sounds
all
like
of the,
illegal. I don't know if that is that
well,
manipulation or something. I mean,
people were mad, but I don't think anything happened to them.
okay.
With that, we are going to leave it there, I think. If you are a free subscriber, we'll play you out. If you are a paid subscriber, we're going to talk about the internet in the Amazon rainforest. This is Jason Kebler, and this has been the 404 Media Podcast. Please like, subscribe. Joseph and his script and his good reading will be back next week. In the meantime, leave us a review, but only if it's nice.